Yeah. Three.
If you're looking for some place to get away, welcome to paradise. Barbados, so nice. Whether you're drinking rum or a pack of Kool-Aid, welcome to paradise. Barbados, so nice. Man, this thing so sweet, no others can compete. That is my island. Barbados, so nice. We got the best beaches, girl, with them peaches down in my island. Barbados, so nice. Have you ever been to some place before? You will leave yet, but you're craving for more. This place will give you so much good memories, plenty vibes and stories. Watch new friends become family. Now we back at this place I call home. Sweet like a samba bone. This place is a one of a kind. No other place. Let me take you on the west coast, where we party the most. If you're looking a place to go, Barbados is heading for sure. If you're looking for some place to get away, welcome to paradise. Barbados, so nice. Whether you're drinking rum or a pack of Kool-Aid, welcome to paradise. Barbados, so nice. Man, this thing so sweet, no others can compete. That is my island. Barbados, so nice. We got the best beaches, girl, with them peaches down in my island. Barbados, so nice. So many places you can visit. Kensington Oval for cricket, Baxter's Road, fried fish, you get it. St. Nicholas and the train ride it. Harrison's Cave, you must visit. Atlantis submarine, you love it. Man, this place is paradise. This place is paradise. If it's paradise, no other place. This place is paradise. This place is paradise. If it's paradise, this place is paradise. Barbados, no other place. If you're looking for some place to get away, welcome to paradise. Barbados, so nice. Whether you're drinking rum or a pack of Kool-Aid, welcome to paradise. Barbados, so nice. Man, this thing so sweet, no others can compete. That is my island. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I'ma say, hey, me fretting up about the year I'm flexing. I'ma say, hey, me frowning up on me here it wearing. Whoa. Every day, them a cry me down, but I just don't have fun. All me want is the music all night long. Till the party done. Play the music, big and strong, 'cause I just don't have fun. cause I just love having fun. From the gun, straight to town. Don't stop this down. Cause you know I'm addicted. Na 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 na, without it. Stop me over the pumping. I'll be not just a jumping. Oh gosh, cause you know I'm addicted. Na 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 na, without it. Stop me over the pumping. I'll be not just a jumping. Oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh. If the vibe, feeling right. Whoa, 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 whoa. Play the music, play the music.
This girl live in a kind of place. Can't even find she address on way. She bump out the cause a collision. Looking like all she does it is provision. She says she's a country girl all the way. The girl look good. Stand up and she too and not Kimbo. She resourceful. When lights go, she like think the flambo. Like she reading mind. You know this girl could make homemade wine. I don't care who vex. Town girl sweet, but country is the best. I wanna live in your country. Spend money on the country. I can bed in the country rain. I wanna live in your country. Spend money on the country. You can't find me. I down in there. Sunday morning she's stirring up cuckoo. Yes, waking up to dance and doodles. My brethren them saying that I hook anything she wants, she get for sure. If the grass green, whiny, elegant straight. The girl look good. Stand up and she too and not Kimbo. She resourceful. When lights go, she like think the flambo. Like she reading mind. You know this girl could make homemade wine. I don't care who vex. Town girl sweet, but country is the best. I wanna live in your country. Spend money on the country. I can bed in the country rain. Yeah. I wanna live in your country. Spend money on the country. You can't find me. I down in there. This girl live in a kind of place. Can't even find she address on ways. She bump out the cause a collision. Looking like all she does it is provision. She says she's a country girl all the way. The girl look good. Stand up and she too and not Kimbo. She resourceful. When lights go, she like think the flambo. Like she reading mind. You know this girl could make homemade wine. I don't care who vex. Town girl sweet, but country is the best. I wanna live in your country. Spend money on the country. I can bed in the country rain. I wanna live in your country. Spend money on the country. You can't find me. I down in there. I wanna live in your country. Spend money on the country. I can bed in the country rain. Yeah. I wanna live in your country. Spend money.
Good morning, baby. Good morning, baby. Whoa, what a night. Action broke out till morning light. Whoa, what a night. Good morning, baby. It's breakfast in bed after a wonderful night. No pancake and egg. This is a special delight. So we set it on the pillow. Relax and enjoy the flight. And everything nice. We having the time of the night. Right now in the morning vibe. The morning vibes. Real vibes. Nice. get it right. Tonight, no time to wait. Girl, you and I, we're face to face. Oh, life's so short, I don't wanna hold it in. Let the music just get beneath your skin. Close your eyes and let your spirit soar. In my mind, you're the only one I see.
Miss Oliver from Trinidad and Tobago, you left your purse. You can come back to the tent at the back of the venue to collect your purse with your passport. Miss Oliver.
through the fire. I know that my heart will show me the way. Everywhere you turn, you see people smiling. We don't see no creed and race. Don't want nobody tell we about leaving. We fight for a thing and this is the place. Take me home. Take me home. Take me to a place where my heart don't feel no pain. Take me home. Take me home. Take me home. Well, everybody shouting up. Right there, it's a rhythm deep down inside me. And if you're looking for me, you go find me. Right there, right there. I repeat the bim bim bim. Right there, it's a rhythm deep down inside me. Take me home, take me home, take me home.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the acting president of the Republic of Barbados, the Reverend Jeffrey Gibson. and gentlemen, please be seated. The Honorable Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados. The Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and author of The Idea of Barbados. Her Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of the Caribbean and moderator of this distinguished conversation. Dr. June Sommer, Dr. Stacy Richards Kennedy, CAF Regional Manager for the Caribbean and the representative in Barbados. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Dr. Marielle Barrow-Megan, Coordinator of the Big Conversations, specially invited guests, a special good morning to the St. Vincent delegation and all other delegations joining us today. All CARIFESTA staff and volunteers, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. A beautiful Barbados good morning to you. Welcome to the launch of the Big Conversations right here in beautiful Barbados, where the arts live, breathe, and unite the region. I'm your host, Jewel Ford, Local Media Relations and Communications Coordinator for CARIFESTA 15. We are here at the historic Golden Square Freedom Park, part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site, historic Bridgetown and its garrison. The site pays tribute to one of our national heroes, the Right Excellent Clement Payne, and the perfect place to launch big conversations, because this was one of the sites of many big conversations in 1937. I'm going to keep my introduction short, as you're not here to hear me, but to listen to the distinguished speakers on this idea of Barbados. The launch of Big Conversation marks a pivotal cultural moment at CARIFESTA 15, an invocation of history, a celebration of innovation, and a blueprint for sustainable futures. So let's start with a spoken word poet who will set the tone for today's discussions. I now invite Akeem Chandler Prescott, or as we like to call him, Stoned with Cupid, to perform We Need to Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him to the stage.
All right. Good morning. You can hear me now, right? There we go. So we're going to kick this conversation off with a spoken word piece called We Need to Talk. We need to talk. We need to talk about disconnection because it's on the verge of a disconnection. You know, art is supposed to mirror reality, but I don't seem to recognize my reflection anymore. I wonder if the smoke of Mr. Hardin burning has churned in our lungs for so long that we have exhaled his existence out of our festival. I wonder if when we breathe in tradition, if it smells of rotting flesh. And maybe that's why so many of our indigenous practices are on the brink of death. I wonder what's the cost to resurrect a deceased discipline. And if the cost is in the millions, or if it's just a time spent to buy in to that lost meaning. I wonder if Clement Payne rests dreaming of us gathered here in this square. I wonder if Caribbean people realize that we are the manifestation of so many of our ancestors' prayers. I wonder if after all of this talk, how many people can actually hear? Because we love a talk shop of goods and services where we place proposed ideas on display, turning the stage into a showroom, developing the product of how we can help the block men from the boardroom, completely out of tune with the soundtrack of the ghetto. Then we sing the chorus of crime under control every time we gather to talk. And I'm not here to mock sport or mock a serious thing. I just feel like if we can have a big conversation about Caribbean civilization, we got to be realistic about Caribbean living. So let we talk about we culture. Let we have a sit down. about creatives actually having a seat at the table where they can properly eat, not just pick at crumbs of consideration every season and call it a feast. No, we got to talk saints. And saints, most people understand that as dollars and cents. Let me talk corporations with a conscience. Let me talk profit margins, not marked with the blood of the marginalized. Let me talk about going from entry level to enterprise and how policy can drive preservation and innovation. Let me have a conversation about the definition of that word culture. Because I already think a lot of we get it. We seem to think it's just party and vibes, but in reality, it's a holistic expression and way of life. It's the slang that survived colonization. It's that our grandmother sees then and the story it tells when she started cooking. It's the way our grandmothers were met doing net skin to nothing. Culture is code, and not the kind you scan with your phone, no, the kind program into muscle memory and bone. Culture is home for every son of the soul. Culture is why a little brown-skinned girl from Westbury Road can build a brand into $1 billion empire. Culture is why the colonizer, diaspora, and even stranger will fly on 3 different planes to visit these 166 square miles. Culture is the boom, 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 boom heartbeat of these owls pumping progress into our economies. Culture is honestly our only real renewable resource, and it's mined from the minds of our people, extracted from their habits, refined by practice, ritual. Culture is a mystical force forged whenever we gather, and we harness it with our laughter, banishing bad mind away with our friendly banter. Culture is what we had before, what we got right now, and hopefully what we will have after. So if we're having a conversation about the architecture of innovation, we got to trace the blueprint of resilience right down to its roots. And we got to have a conversation where we talk with, not just talk at you. A conversation where the truth will shine so bright it could blind any form of ignorance. We got to dissect any dissonance and become surgical with our topics, operate on our passion till it turns into profit. We got to fine-tune the archives to the frequency of AI so we don't drown in the rising tide of technology. From I to industry, from bush seat to burlap to broadband, we got to comb through every strand of our heritage, detangling knowledge as we brush shoulders. This is where a poet could talk to world leaders who will lead us in one big conversation at CARIFESTA 2025. One big conversation about our daily lives. One big conversation about pride and industry. And when we done talk, I want one to tell me, what is your definition of culture?
Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause for Akeem Chandler Prescott with We Need to Talk. I now invite Senator Dr. the Honorable Chantal Munro-Knight, Minister with responsibility for culture in the Prime Minister's office, to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can appreciate, the traffic is a little heavy, so Senator Munro-Knight is not here yet. But I bring you the Honorable Chad Blackman, Minister of Educational Transformation.
Thank you very much. Acting President of Barbados, Prime Minister Motley, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Secretary General of CARICOM, Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, specially invited guests, CARICOM, CARIFESTA, Caribbean people, good morning to all of you. Good morning to all of you. It is certainly a privilege to welcome you to the heart of Barbados in Golden Square this morning to what is dubbed as a big conversation. To have such Caribbean luminaries in a place anchored in the history of revolution, but now rolling out in a place of peace and reflection is certainly not only a proud moment for Barbados, but one for the Caribbean. And I'm confident that this morning's discussion will lend to not just a great part of CARIFESTA 2025, the 15th iteration of CARIFESTA, but to start a movement of a new ideology for the Caribbean, one that continues to have its place anchored in the world, but two, can ensure that we as a Caribbean people and civilization can now move to the next level of our development in business and trade, in fashion, in art, in technology. The challenges in the world are there, but our history has shown that notwithstanding what has come before us, we as Caribbean people thrive and succeed and dominate. And therefore, this morning's conversation, in my view, places us at a firm place for us to now build out the future of what the Caribbean must be in this ever-changing global world. So I want to simply welcome you. Of course, the government places significant premium on this moment. And this morning, I believe that we are in for a special discussion, particularly given who we have slated to speak to you. And therefore, I want to wish you a happy conversation this morning and happy CARIFESTA once again. Thank you.
Another round of applause for the Honorable Chad Blackman, Minister of Educational. I'm going to throw myself on the mercy of the court and ask for grace and forgiveness from His Excellency, the Acting President, Reverend Jeffrey Gibson. Sir, I did see you, but I was following the script. My apologies. We now have a musical interlude with the music of the Mighty Sparrow, a medley by the National Arts Theatre Company of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them to the stage.
Round the corner posing, bet your life is something they're selling. And if you catch them broken, you could get them all for nothing. Don't make a row, the Yankees gone and Sparrow take over now.
Gina and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina, round the corner posing, bet your life is something they're selling. And if you catch them broken, you could get them all for nothing. Don't make a row, the Yankees gone and Sparrow take over now.
Well, the hills in Tom feeling bad. No, my Yankees in Trinidad. They're going to close on Facebook. Them girls have to make out how they could. Well, but it's now get back up in tongue. In for a penny and in for a pound. Well, it's competition for so. Trouble me so many price drop low, so when they bump up.
Gina and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina, round the corner posing, bet your life is something they're selling. And if you catch them broken, you could get them all for nothing. Don't make a row, the Yankees gone and Sparrow take over now.
Playing in class with a lizard in a glass. The lizard get away from root and run by the teacher foot. Oh Lord, the children frightened, wondering what go happen, but the teacher laughing out, only watching everybody. Lizard run up she foot and disappear. Everybody still searching everywhere. Where the lizard, teacher Mildred, it under she dress, taking a rest the way she jolly and happy. I'm sure the lizard must be tickling she. Melda, oh, you're making wedding plans, carrying men into Obia man. All you do, you can't get through, I still ain't go married to you. You're making yourself a papi show, Melda. You're making yourself a bloody clown. Up and down the country looking for Obia, and your perspiration smells so strong. Girl, you only wasting time. Obia wedding bells don't chime, and you can't trap me with necromancy. Melda, oh, you're making wedding plans, carrying men into Obia man. All you do, you can't get through, I still ain't gonna marry to you. A
Drunk and disorderly,
a drunk,
always in custody with my friends and my family.
a drunk,
All man fed up with me cause I drunk and disorderly. Every weekend I in the jail. Drunk and disorderly, nobody to stand me bail. I drunk and disorderly,
a drunk,
always in custody with my friends and my family.
a drunk,
All man fed up with me cause I drunk and disorderly. Every weekend I in the jail. Drunk and disorderly, nobody to stand me bail.
a drunk,
Don't do that,
a drunk,
don't do that,
a drunk,
don't do that,
a drunk.
don't do that.
The fete was crowded and she was tight, while I was grounded. She high in flight, Hoytonian steel band blazing a jam. She turn, she bam bam, lick down me pan.
Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, yeah, don't do that. Do back back on me, do back back, 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 do back back on me, do back back. You see Miss Mary, one pound, she big and hairy, 1 pound. You see she mother, 1 pound. You see she daughter, 1 pound. You see Miss Mary, 1 pound, she big and hairy, 1 pound. You see she mother, 1 pound. You see she daughter, 1 pound.
Dancing with your man, you only jamming down me pan with your bam bam.
Da 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 da.
Don't do that.
I don't know about you guys, but I was there backstage shaking a leg. Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause for the National Theatre Arts Company of Trinidad and Tobago. I now invite Dr. Stacy Richards Kennedy, CAF Regional Manager for the Caribbean and representative in Barbados, to come to the stage.
Thank you very much. I think we have a little issue there. Sure. Thank you very much, my brothers. Excellency, Acting President of Barbados, Honorable Prime Minister Motley, Honorable Prime Minister Gonzalez, Secretary General of CARICOM, Vice Chancellor Beckles, and of course my sister, Dr. June Sumo. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and no one does it quite like the mighty sparrow. So can we give another round of applause to our previous participants? Honorable delegates, I'd like to begin by building on where that last performance ended, celebrating multi-layered Caribbean expression that provokes thought, encourages reflection and self-interrogation, and challenges the status quo. That's why we're here today. And the mighty sparrow's voice has for decades captured Caribbean ingenuity through the blend of song with humor, double entendre, innuendo, and social commentary to tell our stories. When a direct political discourse was forbidden, we turned to avenues like calypso and lyrics that carried profound truths wrapped in wit and wisdom. The language of resistance became the language of survival, and eventually the language of transformation. This art form reminds us that calypso was never just music. It has been our popular parliament, our classroom, and our conscience. And what a fitting setting we're in today for the launch of our big conversations. Here, under the gaze of history, we come together not only to celebrate our creativity, but to ask the hard questions about identity, about resilience, about sustainability. 87 years ago, on this very ground, a man named Clement Payne dared to believe that ordinary people deserved extraordinary lives. His words sparked 4 days that changed the trajectory of Barbados and our region forever. Today, we gather in that same spirit of audacious hope, not as inheritors of someone else's vision, but as architects of our own future. CAF, Development Bank for Latin America and the Caribbean, firmly believes in the transformative power of language and expression. As a homegrown development bank in the Global South that was born in South America with a mandate to support regional integration across Latin America and the Caribbean, we hold firm the belief that economics is not the only language of development. There's also the language of justice, the language of inclusion, and the language of human rights. And it is in this spirit that we're proud to be the title sponsor of the big conversations during CARIFESTA 15, an initiative that is at the core of who we are as a region, our essence, our ambition, and our aspirations. On behalf of our executive president, I wish to congratulate Prime Minister Motley and the entire government of Barbados for making big conversations an integral part of CARIFESTA 15. Please join me. We hope that it may be considered a permanent fixture in the CARIFESTA agenda for future editions of this beautiful regional festival. Big Conversations creates a space for the kind of dialogue that has always been at the heart of Caribbean identity. Conversations that are unafraid to challenge, to question, and to be boldly and creatively futuristic. When we provide platforms for Caribbean voices and meaningful discourse, we celebrate Caribbean scholarship and visionary leadership. And this, my brothers and sisters, is another form of cultural expression and entertainment, perhaps more cerebral in nature, but shaping our individual and collective narrative, and importantly, carrying the ethos of empowerment. Freedom of the mind, freedom of the spirit. Just as the reverberating rhythms in the music we create, the stories we tell, and the conversations we have together shape not only how we see ourselves, but also how the world sees us and engages with us. Big Conversations embodies this spirit. It recognizes that the challenges we face, from climate change to economic transformation and so much more, require us to think together and to work and build this region together. The same collaborative spirit that has defined Caribbean resistance and creativity must also define Caribbean development. And CAF is honored to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in that journey, not as a sponsor, but as a partner. The conversations we will have here over these coming days will echo beyond this space, just as Sparrow's music and the creative work of so many other Caribbean artists have echoed across generations. And now, more than ever before, we need to have these big conversations that our region needs and that our future demands. Permit me to close, brothers and sisters, with a personal reflection that just as we take time to have big conversations with each other and with our leaders here today, we must also each pause to have big conversations with ourselves. I firmly believe that it is when we still our minds and open our hearts as individuals that we unleash a pure energy and activate our human agency to bring about the change that we need in our societies. As a development specialist, this has meant for me turning to poetry as I work through what it is to lead the micropolitics of development across the Caribbean. And if I may just share with you one that I wrote about a year ago, around the time that I was accredited as CAF's representative in Barbados, in this beautiful country. And I wrote it with Barbados on my mind and in my heart, but also as a daughter of the Caribbean. And it is called Island Glue. From lands afar they come, as they have for centuries done, searching for much more than they show, trying to capture our island glow. Basking in your warm embrace, never do they feel out of place. It is your beauty and lushness that they adore that always leaves them yearning for more. That inner radiance that harbors your essence, like 1,000 stars, it is incandescent, igniting your passion and drive to preserve the dignified life that your children deserve. So what is it that prevents those who come and go from taking the time to look beneath your glue, to care about your children's dreams and ambitions, and care about you, your holistic condition? It seems unjust that they thrive without fear at the expense of your children's sweat, blood, and tears. How audacious to want to limit your destiny to nothing more than sun, sand, and sea. Your ancestral sacrifices they'll never understand, nor the battles waged to defend your land. Now they see all is interconnected, and to disregard your well-being will be at their peril. So sweet Mama Isle, shine bright your light so we can see all that is precious in our collective humanity. In their quiet moments, may those who doubt be compelled to know our shared duty to protect your island glue.
I now invite Dr. Marielle Barrow. Megan, curator of the Big Conversations, to come to the podium. Marielle.
Good morning, everyone. His Excellency, the Honorable Reverend Jeffrey Gibson, Acting President of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, Dr. June Sumar, Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Honorable Dr. Carla Bonnet, Secretary General, CARICOM, Dr. Stacey Richards Kennedy of CAF, and Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of UE, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and specially invited guests. A special good morning to the St. Vincent delegation and all of our other delegations represented here, all CARIFESTA 15 staff and volunteers, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. It is with deep gratitude that I welcome you all to the launch of Big Conversations. Today we begin a journey not just through panels and discussions, but along the routes drawn by our collective Caribbean imagination toward a reality that matches our people's aspirations. We've designed these conversations as a bus journey. Why? Because buses are shared spaces. They carry all of us side by side toward a common destination. Each route represents a pathway through which our people's creativity, resilience, and vision move us forward. These conversations will take us from here at Golden Square Freedom Park to Copacabana, to Church Village Green, the Marcus Garvey Amphitheater, and Queen's Park Esplanade. The first is the Resilience Route, which kicks off today at 1 p.m. at Copacabana. We invite you to join our artists, our writers, and academics, as well as officials for this mini-series, Shifting Shores, Rising Tides. We have voices like our very own Barbadian Alana Brooks. We have Miss Amanda McIntyre of Trinidad and Tobago, an artist and cultural activist who brings vision and urgency to how we reimagine resilience, not just as survival, but as creative renewal. Next, we have Postcards from the Front Line with Clish Gittins and the Premier of the British Virgin Islands. Then we start on our innovation line with AI Can't Tech We Rhythm, and that is a dance conversation. From burlap to broadband and from I&I to industry, our conversations will span a variety of topics, and there is something for everyone. We invite you to gather around, to come, to share our spaces with us, and to have an interactive dialogue. This is not simply about us speaking to you, but us speaking with you. And so it is really our pleasure this morning to welcome you to Big Conversations and to invite you to join us on this bus journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marielle. Coming now to entertain us with a great performance, one of my favorite songs from her, Mahalia Cummins with Talk to Me, and that's mixed with a nice mashup of Edwin Yearwood's A Voice in My Head. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome her to the stage.
Good morning, everybody. We are going to talk to each other and really listen, yeah? Talk to me so you can know the real deal. I know it's hard to see. We're all just ordinary people. Not enough makeup could hide the expression on my face. Not enough hurdles could keep me out this race. I know you don't see me, so you're just standing in my way. You get the perks, we do the works. Got no respect for what we really worth. Everybody got got them one thing going on. Everywhere inside the city is confusion. You just don't understand. You're not around the common man. You don't know our dreams or plans. It's not what you heard. You know the words. So why don't you come out and talk to me, so you can know the real deal? Yes, yeah, I know it's hard to see. We're all just ordinary people. Yes. Stop and take a look around and then you will see nothing is a real mystery. Every day you're breathing in the same air as me, living the same atmosphere as me, eat and sleep and drink like me, cry tears just like me. You see the better while we see the worst. What would you do if the roles get reversed? Oh no, everybody got their own thing going on, yes. Yeah, everywhere inside the city is confusion. You just don't understand. You're not around the common man. You don't know our dreams or plans. It's not what you heard. You know the word. Why don't you come out and talk to me, so you can know the real deal, the real deal. And I know it's hard to see. We're all just ordinary people. Oh, yeah. 'Cause that voice in my head, that voice in my head, I lift my head up to the sky, question the heavens, asking why. Why must I go on to live in this violence and crime? Why can't I tour the lands I know, watch all my children's children grow? Why must I go on to live in this violence and crime? Oh no, a new day begins and you're feeling must I go on to live in this violence and crime? Why can't I tour the lands I know? Watch all my children's children grow. Why must I go on to live in this violence and crime? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause for Mahalia, Therefore Talk to Me, and a mashup with A Voice in My Head. It's time now for the big conversation, and I will invite our panelists to the stage, starting with the Honorable Mia Amor-Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Her Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, CARICOM Secretary General, who will moderate the conversation, Dr. June Sommer, historian and diplomat, and Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies.
It came out.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's exactly 12:01, so that makes it afternoon now, right? I would like to begin by recognizing the Acting Governor General, the Very Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Gibson, and to recognize all leaders, all special guests, all participants in CARIFESTA. Welcome to the launch of the Big Conversation series at CARIFESTA 15. Our distinguished panel today will explore the idea of Caribbean civilization. This is a conversation that is both appropriate and critical in this CARIFESTA moment. We are gathered in Golden Square, Freedom Park, that has great historical significance in relation to the labor uprisings that swept across the Caribbean in the 1930s. Today, August 23rd, is the International Day for the Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its abolition, designated by UNESCO to commemorate the beginning on this day in 1791, the rebellion in Saint-Domingue that started the war of resistance against chattel slavery that eventually led to the first Black Republic in our hemisphere, Haiti, and effectively started the process of abolition of slavery, which happened in the British Caribbean territories beginning in 1834. The struggle against colonialism took root in the 20th century when most territories achieved independence. The spirit of resistance and resilience which grew to characterize Caribbean people during our history of colonialism and slavery is critical to our capacity to address the challenges we now face, whether these are geopolitical developments, the climate crisis, public health risks, whether from pandemics or NCDs, violence in our society. This spirit of resistance and resilience is also crucial to considering the role of regional integration and collaboration in strategizing and implementing effective solutions to today's challenges. This panel will consider critical questions. What is the Caribbean? What is the significance of this highly valued space that is home to 44.6 million Caribbean people, of which over 16 million are in CARICOM? What are the ways in which our Caribbean civilization has advanced models of good governance, development, inclusivity, and creativity that have inspired the world? Though we have been shaped by a history of forced migration, native genocide, creolization, and colonialism, our Caribbean civilization has and continues to rise above absurd adversity to notable achievements in every sphere of life. Our distinguished panelists will explore how enslavement, apprenticeship, decolonization, etc., converge to produce the unique and diverse societies in our Caribbean civilization. Our panelists, Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, Sir Hilary Beckles, Ambassador June Suma, and PM Mia Motley, and I list them in the order of which they will speak, will be speaking concisely on a number of questions which I pose, and I emphasize the concisely because these are questions on which any of us can speak for hours. So I will begin with the Honorable Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. PM Gonsalves, the word civilization often brings to mind grand historical empires, systems of thought, material culture. But what does it mean in a Caribbean context? As the author who invented the term, the idea of Barbados, where you argued that Barbados is in the top rank, a developing country with developed nations, governance and human development attainments. The question is, how would you define the idea of Caribbean civilization?
Thank you very much, and to everyone. Anyone who reviews literature on civilization would conclude that it is not a term easy to define. Indeed, one British author, Kenneth Clark, preferred to define civilized man and woman. That you occupy a very special place within your landscape and seascape, a sense of belonging and permanence. Thank you very much. This is better. Not merely occupancy, but permanence in this particular landscape and seascape. And that you must be able to look backwards and look forwards. And it helps if you can read and write. And nowadays, if you can use the computer and go to AI. Civilization has visible sides and invisible sides. The visible ones are fairly easy to identify. And important as they are, it's the invisible side that which reflects our customs, our forms of behavior, the genius of our people. And it is that genius which is resident in our people, which is important for us to tap. And that genius, you may call them hidden rationalities because they are rational. You may call them hidden resources, which are not utilized, underutilized, or ill-utilized. and to bring them and the visible aspects of civilization together. And civilization doesn't have to be one which is associated with imperium, not with empire. And it has come to be acknowledged that there is something distinct called island or seaboard civilization. Amen. Yes. Called island or seaboard civilization, for instance.
I think you need some wires in here and forget the wireless.
We have to discount the price by 70%. We only pay you 30% at the moment. All right? Me, I'm negotiating for you, girl.
Please do.
Yes. We have an island civilization or seaboard civilization. Guyana, for instance, is part of the Caribbean civilization, which is seaboard. Suriname, 10% of the people live towards the coast. And what we do have is, through the fever of history, we have fashioned a civilization of a very special kind in this Caribbean. A creolized civilization of high quality, where we have had metaphorically, and we do have metaphorically, a symphony. We are the songs of the indigenous people, the Kalinago, the Garifuna, the Amerindian. We are the rhythm of Africa. We are the melody of Europe. We are the chords of Asia. And we are the homegrown lyrics of the Caribbean. And like all symphonies, we do have dissonances. And we address those dissonances either through the formal institutions or through the informal ones to create societies of an amazing nature. And if you want a full and proper definition of civilization, the young man, the young poet who regaled us with his poetry earlier today, he told us what is the Caribbean civilization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Gonzalez. I'm going to turn to Professor Beckles and ask him a little bit about the historical foundations of our Caribbean identity or Caribbean civilization, because we have been shaped by colonization, by resistance, creolization, and all of that. And these historical currents have created something that is not entirely, as you heard from PM Gonzalez, it's not entirely Western, it's not entirely indigenous, it's not entirely African, it's a mix of everything. But how that mix comes up is a reflection of our history. So, Professor Beckles, how have the histories of slavery, indentureship, colonization, independence movements, decolonization, how have those things shaped the Caribbean as a civilization?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and very good afternoon, everyone. Protocol is observed, Excellencies. I would wish, of course, to recognize my colleagues and friends from the Pan-Africanist movement, the reparations movement, my brother, David Commichon, who keeps us all in good step. So, good afternoon, everyone. Madam Chair, I need a little more than 10 minutes. I wish to recognize that, you know, the late, great Fidel Castro holds the world record for the longest speech. 6 hours and 15 minutes. And we have all been practicing. But not today. But, colleagues, I wish to begin with endorsing what Dr. Gonzalez has said about our Caribbean civilization, a people with organized values and principles, a people governed by the same historical forces, and have created what in fact is a Caribbean nation. We are a Caribbean nation. The history has taught me that all of us from our different territories, we are just communities in a nation. And this is a gathering of the Caribbean nation, and you have come from far and wide to represent your communities. I wish to say, though, in respect to Barbados, and this is my mandate, to look at the role Barbados has played in all of this, so that as we celebrate the Barbados hosting of this festival, we are also celebrating the Caribbean journey. So allow me to say a few things about battleground Barbados, where the people on this island have fought their battle for Caribbean civilization. And I will begin by drawing attention to a 1960s conversation. It was a conversation between Gordon Lewis, one of our great historians of Caribbean development, and Kamau Brathwaite, the Pan-African poet of Barbados. And Gordon Lewis said in 1962, "Each time I think of Barbados, I think of Little England. I think of Little England." Kamau responded by saying to him, "Barbados is Little Ghana." And here we had two conceptions, Little England versus Little Ghana. And Kamau went on to say that, you know, when a people are oppressed, you never destroy their culture. They bury their culture in their hearts and in the soil, and they wait for the moment. And then you will see the emergence of that culture, brand new and intact. That's an important conversation. So let us say a few things about Barbados. Well, this is where the first genocide of Europe started, Barbados. When the British arrived here in 1627, the first report back to the king said the following: "We have arrived at the island called Barbados. We have surveyed it. There are no people on this island. It's an empty island. But Your Majesty, there are houses everywhere." And that is the first description in the English records, because the Spanish had been coming here for 100 years to kidnap the indigenous people and take them off to Mexico to work in the mines. The Portuguese were coming here to raise this island, kidnap the indigenous people, and take them to Brazil to work on the sugar plantations. And those who survived fled to St. Vincent. And this is why Ralph and Mia are indivisible, because of that history. Because the island of St. Vincent was where...
Hillary, just, you have to add one thing. I met her first when she was 14 years old at school. I was teaching here, I gave her a lecture. And at the end of it, she came up to me. She peppered me with questions. Of course, I knew her father and Elombe. And she said, "I need your telephone number." In those days, there were no cell phones. I gave her my telephone number. She gave me her home number. And since she's 14, we are together. So,
thank you, Ralph. And so the African people in Barbados found freedom for the first time in St. Vincent. And there was a large African population marronage out of Barbados into St. Vincent, and that bond between Barbados and St. Vincent has been strong ever since. Now, Barbados, you must recall, was the first slave society in our region. So it was the site of the first genocide, and it became the site of the first slave society. This is where the British invented the concept of chattel slavery and built that model into Barbados. Barbados then became the home of the first chattel slave society in this hemisphere. And it is from Barbados that that model was exported across the hemisphere. Barbados therefore became the first society in our hemisphere where African people were in the majority. This is the first majority African society in the hemisphere. This is where Africa was embedded in a majority circumstance in Caribbean and American history. But there's more. Barbados became the first society in this hemisphere where women outnumbered men. From 1720 until today, women have been the majority in this island. Not surprising, we have a female prime minister and a female president. It's a reflection of that history. That this has long been a woman's society. And the history moves forward to give expression to that issue. There's also the matter of the first African definition of Barbados. We have on record a statement as early as 1694, where an African about to be boarded on a slave ship, the word has got back to Africa that they were heading out to Barbados, which was the biggest market for enslaved people. And the ship captain wrote that the Africans said, Barbados, we know, is a place worse than hell. That is the first black definition of Barbados, a place worse than hell, because that was the society the English had created on this island. And it's important, therefore, to recognize that while the English were calling Barbados Little England, the Africans had their own view of this island. And this is why we know two things. Chattel slavery was the most oppressive society the world had ever seen. The world had never seen anything like a society built on chattel slavery. And therefore, what resulted in that was the culture of struggle and resistance, because the African people never accepted that reality. Thus, a civilization built on resistance and survival. I will share another example. When the slave owners of Barbados asked the King of England for permission to invade a bigger island because Barbados had saturated with sugar and Africans, and they gave the Barbados slave owners permission to go and colonize Jamaica. Take it from the Spanish and colonize it. And in Speightstown, here, the invasion of Jamaica was organized by Thomas Modiford, who was the governor of Barbados, and they planned the invasion in his house in Spitestown. And they went to Jamaica, and they took Jamaica. And the slave owners of Barbados colonized Jamaica and took with them the enslaved Africans to Jamaica. But if you go through the records of the first decade of the Jamaican Assembly, there is a reference in 1664 by the Assembly that passed a law which said, and whereas the Africans brought from the island of Jamaica, of Barbados, have proven to be a bloody and perfidious people who have committed several murders upon the English community in Jamaica, it is now deemed that no African shall be further imported from that island. And that is important because those Barbadian Africans went to Jamaica, created one of the first maroon communities in the hills of St. Anne. And that is where they went, the hills of St. Anne. And it's those hills of St. Anne that have produced Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley and so on and so forth. Because the culture goes in a circle. The civilization goes in a circle. I will also add, in respect of Barbados, that this very oppressive place have become the heart of a part of the Caribbean struggle. The people of this island have decided that since Barbados was the most oppressive society in the world, it will become, in our charge, in our hands, the freest society in the world. In other words, we will take that history and turn it on its head, because that is our commitment to Caribbean civilization, that we will make Barbados a place where everyone could come and feel free, feel at home, walk the streets, walk the beaches, and feel free, because freedom is now the most important value within Barbadian society. And it's not surprising that our Prime Minister has taken up the battle to complete the decolonization process. Her decision to lead her government to make Barbados a republic comes against the background of that history, to complete the process of decolonization. And Caribbean civilization is demanding it. Barbados is playing its part. And there are two examples I wish to give by way of demonstrating the evil, the place worse than hell that we are trying to destroy. When the right excellent national hero of Barbados, Sarah Ann Gill, who was a colored woman and a preacher, gave a speech right here in Bridgetown in which she said, you cannot be a Christian and be a slave owner. And Sarah Ann Gill made that speech, gave that sermon in a society where all of the priests were slave owners. All of the priests were slave owners. And this young woman gave a speech that you cannot be a Christian and be an owner of slaves. And what happened to her? The slave owners of Barbados burnt her church to the ground. I want you to understand that Barbados was the only place in America where people burnt churches. So when you look at the history of Mississippi and Alabama, where they were burning churches for 200 years, it started here in Barbados, church burning. And we have to understand those issues. The second aspect of this is the Haitian Revolution. When the Haitians declared national independence on the 1st of January, 1804, which territory rose up as the first Caribbean territory to fight a revolution after the Haitians, Barbados. The people who the English thought had been broken, their spirits had been broken by slavery. The one society that took up the battle immediately after Haiti was Barbados. And yes, they killed 1,000 people in 3 days on this island for having the audacity of seeking to duplicate the Haitian Revolution. So yes, Barbados had been a critical part of the journey of Caribbean civilization. And Barbados has been a battleground in much the same way that Jamaica has been a battleground, St. Vincent, a battleground for the indigenous people, and all of the islands have been playing their part. Barbados has also been a battleground in the struggle for Caribbean freedom. And I will end with this observation. We are here at the site of the 1937 battleground. The 1937 battleground, when the most remarkable thing happened here in Barbados. The Marcus Garvey movement felt that Barbados was slipping behind. Barbados was slipping behind in its agitation against colonization. And the Marcus Garvey movement in Trinidad dispatched a young man by the name of Clement Payne. He was born in Barbados, he was raised in Trinidad, and the Marcus Garvey Society dispatched Clement Payne to go home to Barbados where you were born and fight to rebuild the struggle here in Barbados. And this young man arrived from Port-au-Spain and in 3 months had mobilized an island-wide campaign against colonization and gave some of his finest speeches here on this ground. He was a very young man, but yet articulate, committed, brilliant, and he led the transformation that is now the modern Barbados. And I'm honored again to be on the platform with Prime Minister Motley. I too knew her as a young woman, like Clement Payne. A young woman, young, surprisingly young, but with a brilliant mind, tremendous appetite for knowledge, deeply committed to the Caribbean people and Caribbean civilization. And she said, I will do what I have to do to keep Barbados in the mainstream of Caribbean civilization, and Barbados will do its part for the people of the Caribbean. And her revival of the Republican campaign was timely. I wish to end with one issue of responsibility for Mayor. Yes, she has confronted the world of economic injustice on behalf of all Caribbean peoples. That's the struggle that Michael Manley had driven for many years, but somehow they were able to drive Prime Minister Manley out of office. They will not drive Mayor Motley out of office because she has the goodwill of the entire Caribbean. And that final struggle is to let us complete the decolonization process. There are still colonies in the Caribbean, and we are intolerant of the existence of colonies in our Caribbean civilization. There are still islands that are pleading their allegiance to foreign powers. Recently, the students in one of those colonies was told by their government, go to England and get your education, because it is cheaper for you to go to England than to go to UWI, which is your university. But that is colonization. And guess what? we need in the Dutch-speaking territories, in the French-speaking territories, and I feel offended when I arrive in Martinique to meet my colleagues in Martinique and I see a sign at the airport which says, "Welcome to France." I personally find that offensive. So we have to end this colonization because the Caribbean was where European colonization started. It started here in the Caribbean. And the process is not complete. For us to be fully free, totally free, we must end colonization of our people and our societies. And that is the battleground which is left for all of us in the promotion of the Caribbean nation and Caribbean civilization. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Beckles. You've given us the historical landscape. You've talked about all of the various influences, the struggles, particularly here in Barbados, and the struggles that continue. I want to turn to June Suma, and she has spent a significant time recently with the people of African descent. She was the chair of the public forum. And I want to ask her, in relation to the diaspora, in relation to our relations with Africa, the Caribbean exists not only within our geographic borders, but we have communities all over the world. In North America, in Europe. What role does the Caribbean diaspora play in shaping and sustaining the Caribbean civilization? How important is migration now, and what's the relationship with the Caribbean civilization and our outreach with the African diaspora as well?
Thank you very much, Chair. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, just when you thought women spoke a lot. Yes, thank you. I would like to answer this question in a very roundabout way, because I believe that Caribbean civilization starts with the people, not with the systems, not with the policies. It starts with the people. And so to give myself a little bit of legitimacy with regard to being on this panel full of Barbadians and Barbadian connections, I want to tell you how my concept of civilization started. As a young child, I was very much included in a Barbadian society that lived outside of Barbados. So there was, up to about 5 years ago, a small house on Crumpton Street, right opposite the Harrison College gate, where my 3 old aunts who died Mom died at 94, Auntie Constance died at 96, and Aunt Viola died at 103. These 3 entrepreneurial women traveled the seas between St. Lucia and Barbados, trading. And so I came to understand Caribbean civilization as a young child as something that gave us a certain amount of freedom, freedom of movement. And so we became these people who could never stay still, not because we lived on a small island like Barbados of 166 square miles, or on one of St. Lucia, 238 square miles, which is where I lived, but because we were taken away from something and we continued to search for that something, ourselves as a people. So when enslaved people run away from plantations into maroon societies. They tried to recreate the civilization that they knew. They tried to recreate African civilizations in various parts of the Caribbean. And that is very important for us to know, because the first major revolution, successful revolution, the Haitian Revolution, embedded in their constitution that said, any enslaved person who reached our shores would become free and would become a citizen. So you understand that, that one of the determinants of Caribbean civilization must be freedom of movement. And freedom of movement in all of its dimensions, because it ensures that there's a certain amount of self-determination. You are creating what you want to create, not what has been imposed on you. And so these are my concepts on which I based my notion of Caribbean civilization. But more than that, even more than that, when these aunts came back to St. Lucia, they always came back with things, trinkets, clothes for us, etc., etc. And we knew that in Barbados, there was a better standard of living. And so for me, Caribbean civilization must be about the standard of living that we create for our people, if we are putting them at the center. And even if they were in Barbados, and the community I lived in, as I said, had Barbadian people as well as St. Lucians who mixed with them, and would come to Barbados, and after 2 weeks they would come back with that God-blimey accent. And they would make sure that we understood that there was an education system in Barbados that afforded women, because these were women. And Sir Hilary talked about women and the fact that Barbados had the most women in the society. But Barbados has afforded women an education at a time when most of us were still struggling with adult suffrage. And so Barbados became a model for our community. And as I said, civilization must start at the level of the community. I think that Black Stalin says it very well when he speaks about the Caribbean man and the fact that we must have a common intention for a better life in the region. That Caribbean unity cannot be created without a knowledge of your history. And Caribbean civilization cannot be created without understanding who we are, so that we can build that kind of identity. And because I already complained about the length of time that men spoke, let me go to my final issue, which is about the issue of decolonization. And because I am a Caribbean woman, because I have worked throughout the region, decolonization is a very important thing to me, because I go to these islands that are still colonized. And I hear the conversation, and Prime Minister Motley always quotes the song by Bob Marley, which says, decolonize yourself from mental slavery. And we have to, it is our duty, if we are building a Caribbean civilization, to ensure that there is equality and equity built into that concept. And we have countries that do not have that ability. We have not even afforded them that ability at the level of CARICOM, because we have continued with the colonial premise that they are less than us. And we allow them into our mix of Caribbean unity as associate members. What is an associate member? They are members. And I am saying that it is us in the independent countries who must recognize that we cannot have a Caribbean civilization with people who are less than us. We are creating equality and equity. We have taken a long time to remove the chains that bound us. And Barbados is the example for all of us, as we have said, because it is now a republic. And so my challenge, of course, is to Barbados. I'm sorry, Prime Minister. But my challenge is to Barbados to ensure that the rest of the flags, like the Union Jack that you gave back to the Queen, that you must remove the flag of the Dutch from the region, that we must remove the flag of the French from the region, and that we must make sure that because we have now made friends with our enslavers, that we have not forgotten the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Suma. Dr. Suma took me back to a conversation I have with my staff from time to time, because in the conversation about free movement, I've been known to tell them that there was a time when we moved freely. And I tell my own story because my grandparents were from Jamaica. They just got on a boat and went. And there was nobody to say you had to. There was no immigration proceedings at all. And in fact, they did not come directly to Belize. They went to Mexico. My dad happened to have been born in Cozumel. And it was okay for them to move at that time because although the colonizers fought at the level of the empires, they allowed people to move. And so they moved there, and then they moved from there and went to Belize. And that's on my dad's side. On my mom's side, people came up from Nicaragua and ended up in Belize, and so there are family connections and so there was a time when we moved freely, not only among the British Caribbean countries, but among all countries. And there must be ways in which we can work through getting back to a place where it is not only possible, but it is desirable for us to be able to do that. And so we need to work on that, not only within CARICOM, but generally among our countries in the Caribbean area. And PM Motley, I'm asking you now on the basis of that little history that many of us in this region have with our family relations coming from different places, but we are not teaching this to our children. Our children are not aware that there was a time when this was possible. So I'm going to ask you, I know you're a former Minister of Education as well, so what is it that we are not doing right as a region in terms of educating our children about our history? What is it that we need to do to bring those stories alive to how it was so we know how it can be? What do we need to do with our education system, not only here in Barbados, but regionally, to allow it to be more transformative, to allow it to be more real and have the kind of results that we want?
Thank you very much. And June, I want to say up front, it may not be a gender thing, so let me talk. First of all, let me add to where SGU started, because my mother's father left here and went to Grenada and married a Grenadian. They came back here. They had 2 children born in Barbados. They left here. He was a photographer, by the way. And they left here, went to Guadeloupe, and had 2 children born in Guadeloupe. They left Guadeloupe and went to St. Martin and had 1 child born in St. Martin. And they left on the Dutch side. And then they left St. Martin and went to Aruba. And my mother and another brother and sister were born in Aruba. And they eventually came back here after 25 years of roaming the Caribbean. He eventually came back here and had his studios all across Bridgetown. They went to Dutch territories, they went to French territories, they went to English territories. In my family alone, I have first cousins whose first language is Dutch, not English. Something has to be fundamentally wrong with a Caribbean that in the third decade of the 21st century still defines itself by imperial demarcations that are not born of our culture and our reality. And it is only us who can change it. And so Hillary, I want to thank you and June for raising the issue. And I want to adopt all that Ralph said in terms of the context of the shaping of civilization. Now, what are we up against? Education has been seen in this country, Barbados, as the means by which poverty can be pushed back. If you ask a Bajan, what are the three most important things? 1, getting an education for the children. 2, owning a piece of the rock. And 3, don't unfair nobody. Bajans have a keen sense of social justice and that humanizing element that is absolutely necessary, and largely because of the kind of oppression that we would have seen in our modern settlement post-1627. My fear is that, just like the story in the Bible with Adam and Eve, that the temptation of easy living, the temptation of comfort, the temptation of individualism satisfying you instantly and even in the medium to long term has dulled the senses of many of our people. And when that is combined with a lack of an appropriate sensitization and education and empowerment of people, we run the risk of being recolonized again. The reality is that is why, as recent as the heads of government meeting, I called for us to start to take control over how information is generated and how it is disseminated. And that the day that we don't control the technology that allows that to happen is the day that we become subject to the wills of other people. So that you have a smart city, you have smart grids, you have all of these smart things that can become ignorant with the turning of a switch. And one man owning all of this, whether through Starlink or Linkstar, whatever you want to call it, can immediately change the condition. Not that I'm imputing bad motive to him, because I'm not. But I'm stating vulnerability of us. And if we are truly to be sovereign nations, the first thing we must recognize is that the Armada is not coming. The flotillas are not coming. They're not dropping people in the center of the careenage there to be distributed in Barbados and other islands as slaves. They are coming straight into your heads and your minds. Just now, I went and looked when Hillary was talking, and I asked a simple question: what other laws in the Americas were inspired by the Barbados Slave Code of 1661? Where I'm sitting, I'm watching the Tower of Parliament with the flag. And when Hillary talked about the obligation to pay forward, that obligation to pay forward comes from the awful horror of having led the world in the Americas with the worst piece of legislation that has ever been passed by any parliament, any part, because it effectively denied the humanity of Africans and made them chattel. When I asked that question, Microsoft Copilot immediately answered, and it started with South Carolina 1696, and it had Jamaica next. And in 3 seconds, as I went to scroll, it removed it. And it said, I'm afraid I cannot talk about that topic. Sorry about that. I then went and asked again, give me the slave code of South Carolina. It started to give it to me and tell me how it was based on Barbados. And in 3 seconds again, I'd really like to help. But it seems that this topic is off limits for me. Sorry for that. I went to Perplexity, another AI platform, and mercifully, they answered. I give that example that is literally real time to show you the vulnerability of which I spoke. And this region has to face a few realities that regrettably I'm not sure we are facing as frontally and as comprehensively as we should. One, we are not in a position to control our destiny if we want to do it individually and without understanding the importance of common action and common purpose through the Caribbean community and the functional cooperation that it allows each of us. Two, that we, with the exception of Haiti, are all underpopulated. And yet, I am not an economist, but the factors of economic growth and development relate to what? Capital. What about labor? If you're underpopulated, how do you expect to be able to meet that ability, to be able to have the growth that can transform the quality of life of which June spoke? And to my SG, you know my view, that we are years behind in establishing a regional population commission that allows the Caribbean to be able to forge its destiny, not by accident or serendipity or because somebody else wants to oppress us, but because we are shaping and forming our own destiny deliberately. Thirdly, that without the Education Transformation Commission, that changes our educational system from simply providing knowledge which can be searched on depending on which platform you now use and what algorithms are there, but you can find knowledge generally. But where we are losing it is in the inculcation of values and attitudes and the provision of the requisite skills, and then the insistence on the habit that leads to excellence and to compassion. Those things don't happen by accident, but they become the actions and efforts every day. If we do it, they then become habit for us. My fear is that unless we root our people with these things, the things that led to Caribbean resilience for centuries will not provide for a resilient population going forward. And if our people can easily be swayed by food that's sweet, because sweet food isn't necessarily good for you, especially if you take it enough. Bitter is better. Secondly, if we only feel that everything we do is driven by our individual approach to life, and we're looking in a phone all of the time, how are we going to find the collective purpose to build the movements that are necessary to advance the quality of life in these countries and to ensure that we do not become pawns of another civilization who are simply trying to be able to dominate across the board? Thirdly, if we do not teach each other to respect each other, to care for each other, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the ability to disagree without being disagreeable in small spaces, if these things are not part and parcel of small group development all across the region, then you're going to get the dissonance that leads to the conflict, that leads to the violence. And in the days where automatic guns are easier to catch than a 2x3 piece of wood, then you're going to have the reality of persons being the victims of that automatic gun violence across our societies. Guns do not walk, guns do not talk, but they are strong as technology. And without gunpowder, Europe could not have taken down Africa. So can you imagine what it will do to these islands and to these states in this region if we do not get on top of it? I say these things because our people have the ability to rise above it. Our history requires it of us. We know what has happened in the past, but we must not be lured, as Eve was in the Bible, into a sense of satisfaction and a sense of comfort such that we forget the common mission and the common approach that requires all of us together. Democracy, as we know it, is also at risk. And the reality is that it is at risk because we have moved from broadcasting to narrowcasting. We have created powers and technologies that are available in people's hands, whether it is a phone or a gun, that immediately changes the balance of power in societies. And what we need to do is to recognize that the state is at risk. And why? If the only place you can start to shape values in a society now becomes the school, because the people who used to watch the common television station ain't doing so no more. The people who used to listen to the radio stations together or the newspaper ain't doing it. And I'm not talking about Barbados. Let's take the US. In the US, you had ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS. Now you have narrowcasting, so that the state can no longer influence people en masse other than in the school system. You can't do it in the church because we have religious diversity. You can't do it in other areas because you don't have that common aggregation. Now, what does that mean? That there is a risk and a temptation that the state will want to strengthen itself to control the society by power rather than by influence. That is the balance and that is the risk that we as Caribbean states have to watch. And this morning I spoke to the Vice Chancellor. The government of Barbados feels so strongly about this that we want to work with the University of the West Indies to establish here at Cave Hill the Caribbean Institute for Democracy and Political Governance, because we believe that in the same way that our Caribbean civilization has played a marked role in helping to identify the battles of the world that have been oppressive and tyrannical and trying to fight against it, and at the same time giving the world an example of how people of different races and religions can live together, relatively speaking, in the same common space without massive bloodshed. We believe that we need to institutionalize that story and those teachings and to give the world that very example at the time when the world needs it more than ever, in this madness of geopolitical strife, in this madness of conflict in almost every area. And it is against that backdrop that we hope that the gathering of ships in the Southern Caribbean will not mean that this is a foreteller of conflict in this region, because we are adamant about one thing across all Caribbean states, that the Caribbean must remain a zone of peace, having been a theater of conflict and iniquity for far too long. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Prime Minister Motley. And using the prerogative of the chair, this is why Prime Minister Motley is held in such high regard, not only in the Caribbean region, but globally. Because in a nutshell, she brought it all together about why we need to fix our education system. So, for example, we stopped quarreling about which colonizer was better. You know, we think that ours was better than the one over there. We really ought to be talking about how, as descendants of colonizers, all of us, it shouldn't matter what language we speak, because our experience was the same. So I want to pay enough respect to Prime Minister Motley. I want to ask PM Gonzalez to wrap up his conversation on Caribbean civilization and how it is evolving, and what role he sees in the cooperation, collaboration among nations, the integration that we're trying to build. How can we elevate, how can we strengthen that to ensure that it is supportive of the evolving Caribbean civilization, bringing everybody around the table?
Thank you. First of all, we need to recognize that any civilization which has to be sustained requires a material base appropriate to the purpose, which means that we must have the requisite economic arrangements in place and the levels of productivity. So that's first of all. You can't have a civilization which is not sustainable in an economic sense. Secondly, what emerges is that we have shared experiences, but those shared experiences must be structured institutionally into shared expressions. That is why we have the OECS, that's why we have CARICOM, that's why we have the ALBA, the Association of Caribbean States, CELAC, and the like. So that's second, very important. Thirdly, what is the purpose of all of this? The purpose really, in the final analysis, is to make a whole daughter and a whole son out of the history of compromises which have made us. I'm not saying that we must make a perfect daughter and a perfect son. It's a whole one. You can be imperfect, but yet whole. And how are we going to do this? We first of all have to ask our mother and our father, we have to ask our grandparents, and we have to ask our daughter and our son. We have to ask, why is it that we speak in a language in which we do not necessarily think? We have to ask ourselves how the whole thing runs. And finally, to understand how the whole thing runs, you have to come home to yourself. We have to come home to ourselves. A recognition that while we are not better than anyone, no one is better than us. We have to appreciate that we, all of us, in the civilization, on the sustainable economic base, we are all time. But only the future is ours to desecrate, because the present is the past. And of course, as the ladies would say, the past is our father's mischiefs. A little bit to the mothers too, but largely the fathers. We have to know how to interface well with the external world. We have to understand the sea. An island and seaboard civilization has to focus very much on the sea and the resources of the sea, including the resources of the deep seabed, which is the next frontier. Spaces, but beyond that, the resources of the sea. In Jamaica, we have the International Seabed Authority. We don't make enough use of what we have in our own domain. I want to suggest too that we need to put together in every single territory, every country in CARICOM, in the region, in CELAC, an advisory, a science and advanced technology advisory council, a science advisory advanced technology brains trust. You put it together. We have to join with the young people who are addressing this technology in order to fuel our further advancement and our further development, always remaining true to our tried and tested uplifting values of our Caribbean civilization, which is a civilization of nobility. And the mayor spoke towards a number of issues, even at the local level, and the individualism is important, and we have to protect the individualism, but the individualism cannot be, for our civilization, what I call an atomized individualism. It has to be a social individualism. And the social individualism is built through solidarity. Without solidarity, we cannot optimally advance our civilization. And as we have seen here today, the women, in addition to the young, are vital in this. In the early 1940s, something which was written by a Barbadian poet, an extraordinary man, Hilton Vaughan, and in using the Caribbean woman as a synonym for what is magnificent in our civilization. We are redefining ourselves as we came out of the 1930s anti-colonial uprisings. And he says very pointedly to a beautiful Caribbean woman, which represents, as I say, it's a metaphor for the further ennoblement of our civilization. Turn sideways now and let them see what loveliness escapes the schools. Then turn again and smile and be the perfect answer to those fools who always prate of Greece and Rome, the face that launch 1,000 ships and such like things. But keep tight lips for burnished beauty nearer home, our Caribbean civilization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
If I may, very quickly, I'm going to have a closing point here, but I think it may appropriately come after Ralph. Our problem is scale. If we don't have scale across our countries, we will not have the transformation. And it bothers me deeply that we're not yet at a stage where we recognize that we're going to have to use different media to reach people. It's no sense quarreling about the fact that the people out there and they're listening to the things that we want them to listen to. Last Saturday, I brought together Machel Montano, Atakan, Mikey Bennett from Jamaica, and a number of songwriters and artists in Barbados. Because ultimately, our preachers, our teachers, our politicians were the ones who carried sway in the past. But the people who carry the greatest sway today, whether we like it or not, and who have not necessarily come to the task of leadership willingly, are our artists and our sportsmen. They are global movers. Nobody asks them for a visa when they're good. They're allowed to move. I believe that we are not using them sufficiently in this Caribbean civilization. And Akeem said it at the beginning in his wonderful spoken word. To be able to get into the schools, I want to salute the students of Grantley Adams Memorial, of Springer Memorial and Queen's College, who are all here this morning, and Harrison College. And I want to be able to salute the 300 or so young people from the region who came in on the Prime Minister's Jamboree for CARIFESTA, because they just become part and parcel of the army to be able to bring the rest of Caribbean people along. We have to have scale. And people may say many things about Fidel, but Fidel articulated a clear pathway for the civilization of the Cuban people. Where Cuba has fallen, as Ralph made the point, you can't have a successful civilization if your economy is being undermined. So that the process of education is not where they faltered. It is the process by which they can support their people with food and medicine and different other things. And it is as a result of the fact that a prison wall has been placed around them with the sanctions that have been there for over 6 decades, which quite frankly are nothing short of criminal. Now we can speak of the modern things today, and I've spoken about the genocide in Israel. I've spoken about the absence of attention on Sudan while focusing on Ukraine. I've spoken this morning about the need to make sure that the Caribbean does not become the next theater. But the reality of what is happening in Cuba is still before our very eyes, and it is wrong. Now, we, however, have to make sure that we don't lose our way. And the quickest way to make sure we don't lose our way is to get the scale, to get the majority of our people sensitized. And in a time when there is narrowcasting and not broadcasting, it becomes even more challenging. We need to change the modalities and use those who already command their attention and their ear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PM Motley. I want to invite both Ambassador Suma.
And this is why Barbados is hosting CARIFESTA and building out the heritage economy and doing all of the things. There will be economic benefits, but more than the economic benefits, it is about trying to get scale in the mental emancipation of our region.
Thank you very much. I would want to invite Ambassador Suma and then Professor Beckles to give your closing, and then we will wrap this up as we've effectively run out of time, but we will. It's an excellent conversation.
Thank you very much, Chair. One of the challenges that we face comes from the fact that we don't see ourselves as a collective. And we continue to allow those on the outside not to view us as a collective. In fact, at the various tables that I sit within the United Nations, they have refused to accept that people of African descent are a collective. And we have to fight for that because, yes, we are individuals, but we are also a collective. And that is what will help us to develop our Caribbean civilization. I am an ardent pan-Caribbeanist. My family comes from everywhere, like prime ministers in the Caribbean. My nieces and nephews are married to every different people in the region. When we have a family reunion, it is like a CARICOM government meeting. So I am an ardent pan-Caribbeanist. And it tells me also that we cannot build on our notions of a global Africa, which is what we are part of, without consolidating who we are as a people in the Caribbean. We can have that reconnection, but to make it sustainable, we must understand who we are as a Caribbean people. And so let me thank everybody for this opportunity to be on this esteemed panel, Prime Minister, especially, and I look forward to us continuing this conversation with the people as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Beckles?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The one element I wish I could have opined upon as a part of Caribbean civilization is the issue of our multi-plural, multiracial, multicultural civilization.
And additionally, cricket.
Yes. Because Prime Minister Motley mentioned the 1661 slave code, as the British called it, where the Parliament of Barbados, in that building over there, had a special session and came up with a law that said the following: from here on in, all Africans arriving on this island shall be deemed as property, chattel, and real estate for those who have purchased them and for the heirs indefinitely. That was a law. That law was then passed through almost every other colony in this hemisphere, but it was conceptualized and legislated in that building. That African people are not human beings. They are property. And they shall be subject to all the features of property. Meaning, you could buy them, you could sell them, you could purchase them, you can mortgage them, you can use them as currency, you can use them as collateral for contract purposes. All the features of property shall now be applicable. It is nothing more than a miracle that those of us who are the descendants of that law and that history have come to the moment of realization where we say, no, all people are equal and their humanity shall be protected, and that we, the black people, are the ones who are saying that. We are saying that we're going to turn that history around, and we should define all people as human beings with equal rights, and no one should be treated, as Prime Minister Motley says, no one should be treated unfairly. As proof of that, let me tell you how the CARICOM Reparations Commission was established. Ralph Gonsalves place a proposal before the heads of governments asking for the establishment of a CARICOM Reparations Commission to speak about injustice and repair. Ralph Gonzalez is a poor white indenture from Portugal, a Portuguese indentured servant coming here and giving us a prime minister. Sitting in the chair of that heads of governments meeting was Kamla Bisesar, a Hindu indentured servant from India whose parents came to Trinidad, grandparents to find work. So here we have it, a reparations commission proposed by a poor white and endorsed by a Hindu princess who said,
I'm still a poor white.
Who said, I want every head of CARICOM to approve this, and all the governments of CARICOM took direction from the Hindu princess of Trinidad to pass the proposal. So here we are, black people, with our reparations commission conceptualized and approved by a Hindu and a Portuguese. But we're all fighting for the same cause and purpose, and I want to emphasize that. So that I want to develop the point Prime Minister Motley says that we are committed to our Caribbean civilization as a place where everyone should be treated fairly and justly, irrespective of their race, color, or class, because this is the fundamental feature of Caribbean civilization. And my thing is not working very well, and it gives me an opportunity to quote Bob Marley. The first time I saw Bob Marley was in Jamaica in 1979, that was 45-something years ago. And Bob Marley came on stage, and the system was not working. And he became frustrated, and he said, have you noticed that every time poor people come together to have a nice time, the sound man does mess up things?
I must defend them. Even though I heckled them earlier, I must defend them. They have done a fantastic job, and I want to thank them. And let me just say this. I hope you very much appreciate that the category poor white is not an ethnic concept, it's a sociological and social concept. Because if you look in the birth certificates from the period of the 19th century, they used to put ethnicity. They had white. They had Portuguese or Madeiran. They had Coolie. They had Negro or earlier nigger. They had mix. It's amazing what we all had to go through, you know. But we have gone through all of it. And we have come out where we are among the best run nations in the entire world. As an integrated whole, as a creolized people with either high or very high levels of human development. We ain't do too bad at all. And sometimes we beat up on ourselves. But I think this is the time at CARIFESTA that we must celebrate what we have.
That's true.
And lift it higher. I want to thank Mia and the government of Barbados. I wrote her a letter because I heard rumblings that some people were saying, as also in St. Vincent, we sent here nearly 150 persons. And there are always persons who say, how much this thing costs? Why you didn't use the money for the poor? Yes. Well, you know, Mia, there was a feast. We ain't talking the civilization or talking about the civilization and CARIFESTA together. There was a feast 2 days. A meeting 2 days before the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. This is a Jewish festival, just like we have a festival here. Christ was at Bethany, at the home of Simon the leper. The disciples were gathered there. A lady turned up with an alabaster box. That's Mia. She turned up with an alabaster box, and inside of it were expensive perfumes. And she chose to anoint Christ with the perfumes. Now, there's a man, Judas, who was there. And Judas led the battle against this woman and said, listen, this thing is a whole year's man's wages for this thing. And you come in and waste it, it should have been given to the poor. And Christ reproached those who are speaking like that and said, the poor you would always have with you. And you can do something about it. But for the moment, let us show some love, which is what we are showing here for one another. And chapter 14 of the book of Mark ended, and Judas Iscariot left and went to see the high priest Caiaphas in a conspiracy to kill Christ, for which he received 30 pieces of silver. So anytime you hear somebody want to stop us celebrating our civilization and our culture, remember that. And remember Judas. Thank you very much.
And SG, may I say, as I hand over to you, we experienced that when we chose to remove a derelict NIS building from this site and to relocate the Barbados Fire Service. Because for too many years, Bajans did not know where Golden Square was, irrespective of the fact that Golden Square was the place of the rebellion of the 20th century that led to the establishment of our first political party within months, just a few hundred meters from here, that led to the establishment of the Barbados Workers' Union within 4 years thereafter, and that effectively led to the modern Barbados. And that is why this conversation in CARIFESTA 15, 87 years after people lost their lives on this site and across Bridgetown, would be the most appropriate place for us to recommit to democracy, recommit to Caribbean civilization, recommit to putting our people above all else in all that we do. The only problem that we have is to bring scale to the equation and not just look at the economic prosperity, but the mental and psychological strength that is needed for that solidarity of which Ralph spoke. So I hope that the rest of you have a wonderful CARIFESTA 15. I'm told that the place mashed up last night in Botanical Gardens. I'm told that the fashion show is on Broad Street. So if you're left in Golden Square, make it to Broad Street and see the beauty and flair. If I was David Rudder, I would sing about the Caribbean woman in Bacchanal Lady, but I cannot. So over to you, SG.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prime Ministers and other distinguished panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will agree that we have heard powerful reflections today on the complexity, creativity, and resilience of Caribbean civilization, from our histories of struggle to our vibrant cultural forms, from our intellectual traditions to our diasporic connections. We can conclude that the idea of Caribbean civilization is about where we've come from, who we are, and where we are moving ourselves forward as great cultural icons from Jamaica, Rex Nettleford, from America, African American, James Baldwin, both reminded us, if we know from whence we came, there is no limit to where we can go. On behalf of the organizers, I want to thank you for starting this big conversation. We are anticipating that the run of the conversations will be excellent, and we're looking forward to it in CARIFESTA henceforth. Thank you, audience, for your engagement. Thank you, everybody. Have a great CARIFESTA.
Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause for the Honorable Mia Amor Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. June Suma, a historian and diplomat, Sir Hilary Beckles, the Vice Chancellor of the UWI, and our moderator, Her Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM. Since the start of this event, a number of cabinet ministers and ministers of government of Barbados have joined us, and we want to acknowledge them. Let's give them a round of applause. Just letting you know that the Grand Market opens this evening at 7 p.m., so head on down to the CARIFESTA Village in Waterford. That's where we're going to kick things off. And then you can join us for Bermuda Night. That's happening at 7 p.m. right here at Golden Square. It is free and full of island vibes, so come on down to Bermuda Night tonight at 7 p.m. right here at Golden Square, Freedom Park. And you can rise with the sun tomorrow morning for the Holy Train, featuring Jonathan Butler, gospel artist. It's going to be a powerful sunrise experience starting at 6 a.m. at the CARIFESTA Village and Grand Market in Waterford. I now introduce Mahalia Cummins. She's going to give us a beautiful rendition of Big Love, Eternal Summer, and Let It Go.
Could see me fly to Caribbean skies, land safe in a place that is paradise. Oh, that's how I'll always come home, where the people are my heart and soul, and I can never feel alone. And every time that I go away, so excited every time that I hear your name, Barbados, my heart just belong there. My heart just belong there. Break down any wall, any barricade, for another homeland I will never trade. Barbados, my heart just belong there. Little island, big, big love that will never go away. Yeah. Never go away. Little island, big, big love that will never go away. Never go away. My voice, the heartbeats of a people you can't destroy. No, we can't destroy. Let me tell you, Barbados, on my heart burn like a flame for you. Go anywhere, I will always return to you. Yeah, yeah, listen here to me. All my love, you will always be dear to me. All my life, every time that I go, excited every time that I hear your name. Barbados, my heart just belong there. My heart just belong there. Break down any wall, any barricade, for another homeland I will never trade. Barbados, my heart just belong there. A little island, big, big love that will never go away. CARIFESTA. In my heart forever, I love you forever. You are in my heart forever. I love you forever. You are in my heart forever. I love you forever. You are in my heart forever. I love you every time that I go. Excited every time that I hear your name. Barbados, my heart just belong there. My heart just belong there. Break down any wall, any barricade. For another homeland I will never trade. Barbados, my heart just belong there. A little island, big, big love that will never go away. Never go away. CARICOM, CARIFESTA, never go away. Yeah, never go away. Little island, big, big love, never go away. In my heart forever. I love you forever. So as you go where you're going now from here, I can send you on your way with positive energy. If you were at the opening ceremony last night, you would have heard this one. So now you're gonna hear it in its entirety. So just feel free to free up yourself and let it go, right? Let me go. Hey, stand firm like a soldier, the world on your shoulder. You're feeling like the boat sinking. March out, no time to hesitate. Got to open the gate, it's time to stop thinking. You can be who you wanna be. Fly like the birds and the bees. One bad mind philosophy. Bounce and shock out, let me see. Woo! Don't you know when the stakes are high, you still get low, yeah. And don't you know when the chips are down, you still let go, yeah. Just lively up yourself, show me you know. Shout out the anthem, oh. Shout out the anthem, oh. When I'm ready, let it, let it, let it, let it, let it, let it, lift up, I said you gotta rip up, flip up. See the people out there, tear the strip up, never trip up. Gotta put your cup up, walk up. Are we gonna lock the block up? Take it and shake it in here and outside in the alley. Here we so wide awake, we about to get rowdy. When you're ready to escape, just popping your mixtape. You rocking the streets of cars and the earthquake. Don't you know when the stakes are high, you still get low? And don't you know when the chips are down, you still let go? Lively up yourself, show me you know. Shout out the anthem, hey. Just shout out the anthem, hey. When I'm ready, let it, let it, let it, let it, let it, let me do it, CARIFESTA. Original swing is such a beautiful thing. No imitation. Do whatever you want. We do whatever we want. No limitation. No, we don't care if you just want to dance. We know that this could be our last chance. Bounce to the groove, ready to move. Time to decide if you win or you lose. Don't you know when the stakes are high, you still get low? Don't you know when the chips are down, you still let go? Just lively up yourself, show me you know. Shout out the anthem, oh, just shout out the anthem. Last time, when I'm ready, let it, let it, let it, let it, let it, let it, let it,
Have a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of CARIFESTA 15 from Barbados with love.